All right.
We are.
We are live. Cool. Well, awesome. Thanks everybody for joining. We wanted to get the community together and talk a little bit about Moon River and celebrate some of the stuff that's going on with Moonbeam. So I'm Nate. I'm going to be the moderator today. You might have seen me in other crowdcasts. I'm the head of ecosystem for Moon River and Moonbeam. Joining me today are two of my esteemed colleagues. You probably know Katie. She is our head of marketing, but we have another up and coming rising star on the PeerStake team, Olivia Smith, who's our director of strategy and operations. So for anybody that just kind of stumbled in here, you found a good spot to stumble into. But I can give some background in terms of Moon River is our Kusama deployment. It's going to be our companion network to Moonbeam, which is getting into a state of launch over the next couple of months here. And the parachain options will launch today, it's awesome to see. So a lot of cool things going on. I wanted to get everybody together, talk about some of the highlights that we've seen since Moon River going live in end of August, and some of the KPIs that we've seen that have been pretty cool. So I'll hand it over to Katie, who's going to kind of take you through some of the highlights, and then we'll do some Q&A about Moonbeam, Moon River, a little bit of everything. So
great, quite the intro, Nate. So cool. Most of you who follow us on Twitter or Telegram or your preferred social channel probably saw that we've reached a milestone on, I think, Tuesday evening our time, which is that we passed 5 million transactions. There's context to that, of course, right? So let me walk through it, but I think really the goal is to shed some light on some of the activity that we're seeing on Moon River, what we think has been pretty successful, and then kind of the transaction or the traction that we're seeing, which I think is certainly an attribute of ours, but something that will continue well into next year. So just diving into it quickly. If I can get this to work correctly, there we go. There's a few things that we think are really stand out about Moon River. It's far and away the most active parachain on Kusama. But what does that mean, right? There's many ways to slice it, many ways to measure it. So the ones that we've chosen to highlight here are the ones that we think most encapsulate that. First, let's talk about market cap, fully diluted market cap. Moon River, as of yesterday, was about 3.5 billion. I think the number is probably about the same right now. And that's just an order of magnitude bigger than anything else we've seen from the first 5 parachains launching on Kusama. And so for us, I think that shows really interest as well as enthusiasm about what we're doing, as well as early usage. We're seeing people actually using projects and platforms building on Moonbeam, tons of deployments regularly, and continuing certainly into this week and next week and beyond. And so that, I think, is something that is certainly illustrated in some of the metrics that you can see around Moon River. When we talk about activity, it's really difficult to articulate that for us because we live in 2 worlds, right? We have these EVM transactions and we have these substrate transactions, and we use them both in this little ecosystem we've built with an EVM on top of a substrate chain. And so in order to look at that in the most fair way possible, we've just decided to look at all transactions, right? Let's look at everything and kind of compare it to what we're seeing. And so if you look at the middle column, you can see Moonbeam has well over 8 million extrinsics that's signed and unsigned. And that is, again, like leagues above what we've seen for parachain activity for other chains on top of Kusama. And then, of course, most of you probably know Moon River has been certainly a fan favorite from a community perspective as well. Multiple times in the last 2.5 months since launch, Moon River has ranked as one of the top 10 tokens overall on Lunar Crush. And that's really driven, I think, by this community-led initiative and sort of the way that it was brought about in its genesis and network launch back in August. So we love seeing that, and we love the community that has developed around Moon River, and will continue to grow and be kind of a focus area of ours moving forward. I'm not sure how many folks are aware of these kinds of things, so I did want to pause and talk about Moon River as a DeFi chain. Just this week, actually, we broke into the top 20 by TVL. Right now, it's sitting right around 380 million locked in TVL. But when we're looking ahead, Sushi only launched last Friday, which is a little bit hard to believe. It feels like it's been around for a while already. But Sushi's really just ramping up. We have new protocols sort of deploying to Moon River all the time. Beefy is one of them, Beefy Finance, that we've spoken about more recently. And so we expect this trend to really continue as well. And I think that this illustrates, again, like utility and usage and interest in Moon River, certainly as a token, but also as a deployment destination for all sorts of applications. I don't think I need to dwell too much on this. Most of you already know that we are certainly the largest ecosystem when you look at projects, both building and planning to build. So we've updated this with some of the ones that we know of, but I think when you look at the projects that are deploying to Moon River, this really only represents a fraction of them. We don't even know most of the teams that are deploying to Moon River. And so we love to see that. We love to see people taking advantage of the permissionless nature of the chain. But also, we think it lends itself to really seeing a variety of different applications emerge and become successful, with or without our team, directly knowing their teams and getting involved. So there's certainly been a number of NFT platforms and AMMs and all sorts of things that have launched without really interacting with the Moonbeam team directly. And then just to touch on this, I think most folks know this, the kind of broader Moonbeam, Moon River community is quite large, and I think has really supported us in the last year. And I know, it sounds a little bit like lip service, but there's certainly no way that Moon River would have been able to achieve all of these things without the community that has developed around it. And they're very much linked in our minds. And so we did want to pause as well and just look at how much interest and activity we're seeing for Moon River continuously in all forms as both a topic of discussion, as well as, really interesting groups that are forming. There's parties happening that are dedicated to Moon River that we are not really terribly involved with. There's new groups spinning up. There's news publications spinning up around Moon River. So this ecosystem has really spawned a life of its own in the best way possible. And so, we see our job, and I see my job in a marketing role as supporting that without necessarily running the show, right? Like, how can we get out of the way and help you guys continue to be enthusiastic and promoters of Moon River? And that's certainly something we're going to focus on quite a bit going into next year. Lastly, I just wanted to give you guys a kind of a wider picture of the stats, right? So when we talk about, I think at the top, I mentioned 5 million transactions. Those are actually just our transactions on the EVM. If you look at substrate-based transactions and add that in, that's where you get that like 8 million number. And because we have kind of this dual world, depending on how we decide to measure what a transaction is and what a transaction means, you'll see different metrics floating around. And so that's kind of where we try and find things that are the easiest slice to compare to other substrate-based chains. But in reality, we're not easy to compare to many other parachains. And so that's something that I think, certainly from a marketing perspective, we can do better is give people some context. But beyond that, when we're looking into next year, our goal with Moon River is to be a compelling layer one Ethereum compatible chain, and we'll continue that kind of well into its life cycle, right? Moonbeam and Moon River are very much linked in our minds, and they'll continue to coexist as siblings. And so I don't need to read these stats for you guys, but I think the moral of the story and what I really wanted to make sure we focus on is that these proof points, these points about Moon River, are all very much demonstrations of the need for what we've built here, the traction that we've been able to gain as a team, and certainly I think they're testaments to our ability to execute. So, of course, the hot topic of today is the auctions, and so as much as we wanted to pause and celebrate the success that we've seen on Moon River, we also wanted to talk about the hot topics of the day. And so with that in mind, I'll switch back to Nate and let you chime in with some of the questions that we have queued up from the community.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's 11 weeks that Moon River's been live, and you're already seeing that traction. I mean, certainly shout out to all the moverines out there who just who've embraced the movement and are taking it forward. Super active. And I heard Katie might be on a Tulum to the circus that they're putting down. down there around Moon River. So I mean, it's just it's awesome to see. It helps all of us just spread the word about what we're building and why we're passionate about the ecosystem, and certainly having a community that supports us the way all the folks do is amazing. So, all right, like Katie said, we're going to shift gears a little bit, talk about some of the hot topics of the day. And so, based on everything you talked about, Katie, what should we expect from Moonbeam? What do you think is going to kind of happen over the next couple months?
Sure. Well, so obviously the first milestone we need to reach is launch. And so that's very much what this current event is sort of centered around. So right now, as most people probably know, if you're in the Polkadot ecosystem and listening to this, the auction started today. And so I think that is going to be a real landmark in the kind of history here with Polkadot. It'll be the first time that parachains get to connect. Of course, there's a common good parachain already in existence, but we'll have kind of 5 new candidates go in here. And so what we can roughly expect to see is these auctions over the next 5 weeks. All 5 winners are actually going to deploy at the same time, which is December 17th. And then from there, that's really sort of like the starting point for most launches, right? So we look at our own launch and sort of what was entailed when we did that with Moon River. And it's going to be kind of a multi-stage launch where we gradually introduce new functionality just to try and maximize, the smoothness of the experience and make sure that everything is operating kind of up to snuff before we add balance transfers in and EVM to let projects start to deploy. So we can see that happening over, December 17th is kind of the start. We're thinking sometime in January is when that will finish. And that is, again, like all from a Moonbeam perspective. Moon River will very much continue to have deployments during those times. We've got a bunch lined up already that we've talked about internally that are coming up very soon. So these things will kind of coexist and run in parallel over the next couple of months.
Cool. So, to dive a little bit into the actual mechanics of the auctions that are going on for folks that might have stumbled in here and don't know what we're talking about, or others that are just looking for some more guidance. Olivia, I wanted to bring you into the conversation to, can you kind of take us through the parachain auctions, what to expect, how they work, kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure a lot of people have already got these basics down. So I apologize. It's kind of a repeat, but it's obligatory. So the start of the auctions, auction 1 kicked off today, and there'll be 5 auctions, 1 a week for the next 5 weeks. I think the same as Kusama, it's important to remember that the first, people say 2 days, it's actually a day and 18 hours estimated, is the starting period. And so that's the most important period for us in the sense that if you contribute your DOT during that period, so that right now is happening, we're in the starting period for auction 1, and it goes until Saturday early morning Eastern time. If you contribute during that period, your DOT is guaranteed to be counted in the auction. After that period, there are 5 days, it's called the ending period. And the auction can close at any point during that period, and you won't know when it closes. So you could contribute your DOT after the auction closes. So even though you'll get the rewards, because we'll honor those contributions, you won't necessarily be part of launching Moonbeam, right? So try to contribute soon. We hope and plan to get one of the first 5 auctions, and we're really excited for this process, as Katie talked about. I'm trying to think of other details that you should keep in mind. I think, thinking about the differences between these auctions and Kusama, some of the things that come to my mind immediately are the lease term. So Kusama was a 48-week lease. This is a 96-week lease. So I think that's something to keep in mind when you think about locking up your DOT for that, or KSM. It's just a different time frame. It's longer. And then the other things I would say is that unlike Kusama, where you kind of could onboard or deploy immediately once you won, as Katie mentioned, all the first 5 will deploy together. So all the first 5 winners will deploy together on December 17th, and they'll run until kind of October 20th, I think, 2023, if I got my math right. And so those are kind of the more mechanical things. I would say one of the other things that I would mention is that we've already seen it, right? You can track these auctions already, and there's just so much more participation. from like the obvious side, we just have a lot more exchanges participating. So we have Binance, we have Wobi, we have OKX. So it just allows a lot more people to know about these and to have easy access to contribute. And it was the same as in Kusama. We have built the Moonbeam Foundation has built this DApp, the crowd loan DApp, to contribute, and that's kind of the easiest way. But they're also supporting wallets and exchanges and liquid dot options as well, and all those are listed on our website. And then the other thing I would say is like, in terms of like, we have all these exchanges and these wallets participating, but the other thing is just like the sheer numbers, right? Like, I'm sure you guys are just like, every time I look, I'm blown away. Like, we had around 6,000 direct contributions, I think, for Moon River. And we were so excited and happy about that. And then I look at now and it's like over 35,000, it's just so many more people. And so I have to say, like, shout out to the Moon River crowd loan people, because they came in and, they are strong supporters. And so they're the first loyal group, right? I think they're a real shout out to them, but there's just so much more participation. There's so much more excitement. And I think there's also there's a lot more information to look at, right? Like, there's demonstrated success, as Katie was talking about. You can look on chain and you can see what these projects have actually delivered that were part of Kusama. And so that's kind of a cool thing too.
Absolutely. The Moon River contributors are the OGs, right? I mean,
right?
It is pretty amazing to see the numbers, how big they are, and yeah, absolutely. So check out the Moonbeam website, and it gives you kind of all the ways that you can contribute, whether it's through an exchange, whether it's directly through the app that the Moonbeam Foundation provides. There are a bunch of different ways to do it, but just to echo what Olivia said, do it early. You want to get in early and make sure that you're counted for when the candle goes out, if you will. So cool. So Katie, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but in terms of, so December 17th hits, first 5 go live, assuming we get one of the first 5. What does that process look like? Turning switches on. We had kind of a slide for Moon River that we had kind of published. Are we going to do something similar to that talks about kind of the launch sequence and what we got to go through?
Yes. So likely the biggest difference is that this one will be a little bit faster. I think it took about 8 weeks to get Moon River fully deployed, and we're looking more like 4-ish. I don't want to overcommit on behalf of engineering, but somewhere in that time frame, we're thinking January. And so that will look like, first the inclusion of a decentralized collator set, right? Because it will be permissioned at first, gradually handed over to a collator set. And that's something that we've emphasized and prioritized from the beginning, right? So we've had staking and collation on testnet on Moon River from the very beginning. We created our own parachain staking palette, and we have added an extension to the Cumulus consensus mechanism. So those are things that we have certainly put a lot of time and energy into, because it's important to us to make sure that we're reducing front running where we can, and making sure that we have many people from across the community supporting the network. So that's the first step. And then from there, it will be, a lot of things, but implementing governance, removing the pseudo keys, which are the super user keys, and then eventually enabling EVM and balance transfers, which actually will happen at the same time. And those are, of course, the biggest milestone, right? So that's when the token will be kind of in circulation. The first 30% of the crowd loan rewards will be distributed, and projects will be able to deploy. When we look at what kinds of projects that will be, I think Moon River gives you a pretty good sense, right? We're 2.5 months in, and we've already got, I have a super duper secret spreadsheet of, I think, probably 70 projects that we've heard of have deployed. We don't know all the teams, but there's certainly some traction that we've seen there. And so when we look ahead to what we commonly talk about as 80, 90 plus partners, we see that as a fraction of what we're going to see for momentum on Moonbeam. There's also some added benefits. I'll use Lido as the example. So they just tweeted today that they have completed a test transaction that will pave the way for liquid KSM on Moon River, which I probably should have mentioned in the Moon River deck. But so that, I think, is not only huge for the Moon River ecosystem, But having completed those steps, having completed this testing means that we will reach that milestone all the faster when it comes to Moonbeam. So, the moral of the story is like shortened time to deployment. Certainly a lot of these key integrations, we know the dates ahead of time, and that's wildly helpful. We didn't know a lot of the dates for the deployments previously, and so we're better able to coordinate with partners now as well. And then, I think the underline here really should be on the activity that we expect to generate with all of this, right? So if you're someone who's been an enthusiast in the Polkadot ecosystem for some time now, that matters, right? We're going to have smart contracts and projects deployed and users in a MetaMask compatible environment very, very quickly after launch. And so I think all of those things will really change the dynamics that we've seen so far with Polkadot, where it's been obviously a lot of engineers and a lot of enthusiastic community members. This is going to bring a very different dynamic in my guess. And we're looking forward to it. We think it's something that we've proven we can do well. And the teams we've been working with are absolutely excellent. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with them and learn about new projects that we don't know about yet. So it's something to keep in mind for your kind of January planning here. But I think that is going to be, from an ecosystem perspective, the rough picture that we'll see in the spring. And then, of course, maybe Olivia, you can talk a little bit more about what we might expect to see for liquidity programs and things like that.
Yeah, I think, as you said, like Moonriver has provided us a lot of information about kind of the systematic approach and what works and what doesn't work. And we're hearing also, Moonriver as also the community. And so we're taking a lot of feedback into account and trying to understand like the best way to optimize. And so, for our DeFi programs, I think there will be a lot of different options, and I hope to see, a lot of deployments that from on Moonriver come to Moonbeam, and so that there's this they're mutually beneficial to each other in terms of kind of in exchanging communities and like products. And so we're really excited about that. And I think the only thing I would add that's like slightly different in terms of like, we have 30% of our crowd loan unlocking, which is the same that we had for Moonriver. But then we also have the Take Flight that comes into circulation 40 days after we launch. And so that was a community event with a lot of Moonriver participants as well. And so we're really excited to have, to bring that online 40 days after we go live.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be great to see. I mean, we, the whole ethos of Kusama, expect chaos, but it's giving you a platform where you can really test all this stuff live. And I think we've learned a lot in the deployments and in terms of getting a lot of the infrastructure in place as soon as possible so that teams can show up and look around and say like, oh, I know how to use this. I need this, this, and this. And we have it all. So, we're going to be going through that same kind of process, and we're just excited to get both ecosystems up and running, and then we can do some really fun stuff around that. So I mean, that's really what we wanted to chat through today. There wasn't anything else that we really needed to call out. I think that we really just wanted to reinforce all the awesome stuff that's happening on Moonriver, talk a little bit about Moonbeam and what launched today with the crowd loans. Even though it had been kind of open pre last week, but we wanted to get everybody together and talk about some cool stuff going on, and hopefully just get people excited for the next couple of weeks, so that we can hopefully get our thoughts in.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, great job. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Katie. Always great to have you guys. And again, thanks again. Keep up the momentum out there, Moverines, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
That's great. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you guys.